with the short hair, you could still see. And that's what I was fixated on all the time. It was a constant struggle.
So instead of going out to the gym or going running like I would usually do, I would actually create my own workouts or go along to some workout DVDs so that it would eliminate the fear of somebody seeing my bald spot or having the fear of thinking that someone is looking at the back of my head at all times.
I was more self-conscious about my hair than my disability. It kind of, because as I got older, I kind of accepted my disability. So I have cerebral palsy. My version is right hemiplegia, so my right side is weaker than the other. Growing up, my parents always thought that I had, a deformed head, if you will. And that's what I was worrying about every time I started seeing the bald spot is like, oh, am I deformed like skull, or is this like lower than the other side? Or first day I really noticed me losing it was up on the crown part, and I actually had thought that the hairdresser messed up because I had just gotten a haircut. Go around seeing if they got everything, and I went up on top for the first time and I noticed there was a little bit more missing. Kind of freaked out about it, and I kind of talked to my parents and friends. Hey, there's a little bit on the top. I don't know if I'm going to go with this person anymore, really, to cut my hair. And they're like, Steven, you're just, losing your hair. You're just, thinning out. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. So that's when the really process started of me finding out and just looking at that area more. Before I knew about my hair loss, I was always very confident, a very good out there kind of guy. And I kind of just lowered myself when I found out that day that I was thinning. And so ever since then, I was kind of like, my confidence was down here. I would always do the pictures on the head and the videos just to see, if it was working well, if it was getting any worse. And it did. I obviously had to be energetic and very up and peppy for work and stuff like that. But personal wise, man, I was down as far as you can go. It was weighing on me heavy. I just started looking into just treatments and just sort of like things to help it, slow down. And that's where I kind of got into the life of hair fibers and, all that kind of jazz. I got this thing where it was not like hair fibers, but it was like a spray that you would spray it on. You can actually see some of it in the pictures that I sent you. I actually look like I have full hair, but it's just the stuff that's in. Use that as my emergency to go thing, like if there's any special events, spray something on. And
you say it was just for kind of special occasions, but when you were kind of using those, were you able then, the spray, right? Were you then kind of able to push it to the back of your mind a little bit?
People knew, obviously. There were people that knew, and when they saw me with full head of hair, they just like, oh, okay. There was one instance where I was at work and I didn't have it in, and I leaned down to tie my shoe, and one of my coworkers was like, oh, Steven, you're going bald. I'm like, oh man. It was just kind of like a realization, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna need to wear this around the office more. But I kind of wanted to be natural at the same time, because it kind of made my hair a bit more greasy, right? And it just didn't feel natural. So last year during my brother's graduation, his college graduation, it was the last time I actually used those things, that spray. I kind of like, okay, this is it. I'm just going to use it for his graduation. Then I'm just going to toss it and be done with it. And that's what I did, because it wasn't just eating at myself, it was eating at my wallet, because those things, it's not cheap. It was a hassle.
I don't want to get too far ahead of the kind of journey, but that's quite big, to be honest, to remove that entirely. Did you replace it with something else?
I went natural probably for about a month, and then that's where the hat started coming along.
Okay, yeah. So the fibers went out, but then I guess that month was throwing up some uncomfortable situations, was it?
I wouldn't want to put my head down. I wouldn't want to be, in front of people. It just made me feel like, okay, I need to start something else.
Hair transplants, hair systems, you've got the medications. Where were you with this sort of thing at this point?
I was against hair transplants and all that. I knew a few people, and I've done, like you said, the research to where they've had to, successful for some people, but then they've had to go back a number of years. Yeah. And I didn't want to, spend the money on that and have that risk and go through that whole process over again.
If people are inclined to go that route, if they could guarantee it was just like one thing and done, it would kind of be different. But the fact it has to be a continuous maintenance really just is a different ball game, right?
Yeah, definitely. I had mentioned as well, I'm actually disabled. So, and so I have cerebral palsy. My version is right hemiplegia, so my right side is weaker than the other. And so growing up, my parents always thought that I had, a deformed head, if you will. And that's what I was worrying about every time I started seeing the bald spot is like, oh, am I deformed like skull, or is this like lower than the other side or something like that? And just really being self-conscious on that.
Was that, I think, for you, knowing like, look at, I've dealt with this, like you said, this disability in times, which I'm sure there were difficult times throwing up, growing up as when you're younger and stuff. Like, come on, you've dealt with it. And did that give you confidence to kind of know, like, look, this sucks, right? But I've done difficult stuff before, so I can kind of do it with this. I'm interested to know about that.
That's why I kind of left the hair fibers alone. Is like, okay, I've dealt with worse in my life. It's just hair. So yeah, that's when I just started the slow transformation of, okay, I'm not gonna try to let this overtake me. So that's when I just started Googling different haircuts for like balding men on the crown, and I tried all those different kind of haircuts. Each one got shorter and shorter and shorter. But then obviously with the short hair, you could still see the crown. And that's what I was fixated on all the time. It looked like I literally just had a crown around like a halo, if you will, on my head. And I have cameras everywhere in my house, so I can see myself just constantly this. And it was a constant struggle. I would deal with my hair constantly throughout the day, just trying to make sure it looked good. I hated being in pictures, no matter if you could see it or not, just because I knew it was there.
At this point, are you thinking like maybe it will stop here and I'm good? Or did you kind of foresee, I'm going to totally lose my hair here?
There was a point where it was like, okay, I know it's probably going to get worse than it is. It's just when, that's just that when.
What was your biggest fear about going bald?
How would my family and friends kind of see me as, how they would accept me? Because I don't know. Yeah, it was really just making sure that I was accepted, kind of like my disability. I was more self-conscious about my hair than my disability. It kind of, because as I got older, I kind of accepted my disability. Now I'm just trying to deal with the hair part.
You're in this position where you're like, okay, look, I don't want to take the meds. I'm not going to get surgery, but you've stopped the fibers. So when does the hat game ramp up for you?
Oh man, I think when I turned 26, that's when I just wearing hats like around the house, like constantly. Like I didn't even want to like see it at all. I would have a hat in my car just in case I like forgot one. I would wear out hats so much that I would really keep needing to buy some or having people gift them to me, that at the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm there's something needs to change.
When do you then start to look forward?
Actually, my parents one day out of nowhere, it was like a spur of the moment type of thing. They were like, you look good bald. That kind of just planted in my mind like, okay, maybe this could be a thing in the future, because they always knew. Obviously parents know best. I hated my hair. I felt uncomfortable even after getting a haircut. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. I would just throw on a hat immediately back on.
Yeah, so even after just getting like paying money for a fresh cut, it would just be hat on.
Exactly. Like as soon as I walked out of the barber, hat back on.
That's pretty significant. Go on. So your parents just out of nowhere kind of just said, hey, if you're going to go bald, I think it would look pretty good, to be honest.
They knew, obviously. I loved my hair, and I love to style it. I love just to do everything with it, and to lose it over time. They knew it was a burden on me. It was something that I had to deal with emotionally, and everything like that.
How long did that seed linger before you went for it?
2 years.
Okay.
2 years.
Wow. So it was quite a long time then.
I was kind of in a rut, if you will. I was just either getting the haircut, then getting it back on, or just letting my hair grow out and just having the hat on entirely. It was just kind of that motion off and on. And then I would keep seeing these videos with the crown, everything like that. And you could see like my head, like you could barely see any hair because I was really short. And I'm like, okay, looks pretty bald. So let me just go ahead and zap it off.
Was this just out of the blue? I'm ready now. Tell me how it went down, man.
Well, first I was gonna do it the day earlier, but it was my brother's birthday, and I didn't want to have like a significant change that day because I had the budget in my hand and everything. And I'm like, Nope, because I was just about to go out too. And so that was another thing where it's going to be pictures. And I'm like, thankfully, it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was still in my mind. It was playing in my mind, like, okay, where's there getting me cameras? Are people going to walk around, notice me, like the waitresses or the waiters? Like, do I have to cover it or something like that for them? Like, that's a constant struggle. But the next day, I was at work and that same old webcam, I like to call it, I'm looking down at my tablet and all I just see is my head. And I'm like, okay, today's the day. I just don't want to look at it anymore. So as soon as I got home, I went in, got some buzzers, kind of looked at myself, kind of took a deep breath and kind of hesitated for probably about 10, 20 seconds. And I just went up and did the first one. And it felt empowering. It felt great. It really did. Since my right side is weaker, it would be the left side that would be a little bit more, kind of deformed, if you will. So I saved the left side for last. I kind of did one more kind of just like looking at my phone type of thing, to make sure I got everything and kind of look at my head for the first time. I went down to 1, and then the next day I went to 0.
Yeah.
Really great.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I mean, dude, it's like, it's a long time. It's a long time coming, and then it's kind of all over in a flash, right? And it's a lot to process.
I felt totally relieved. For one, I put my hats for like all of them for the first time, not just my hat in my car, all in my trunk, and I haven't touched them to this day. Like it just really feels just great. I felt so much lighter, like so much, like I said, so much weight off my shoulders. Didn't have to worry about, people wondering, like, why is he wearing a hat all the time? Especially like in like really fancy places, I would ask people if it's okay to wear hats and stuff like that. Like all this stuff I didn't have to worry about anymore.
So good.
The support all around. There was not one negative comment around it, which was great.
Is there any like personal message, or looking at your experience, anything extra that you want to share with those people who might hear and listen to your story?
You're really thinking about it. If it's really like a daily kind of thing that's going in your mind, try it out. I mean, it's hair. It'll grow back if you don't like it. I mean, that's all that you can really do is try it out. Trying something that matters, and it could really work out in your favor. It could really help lighten the load, if you will.
Yeah, dude, it's solid advice. If you're thinking about it that much, right, and it's on your mind, you're kind of over analyzing it because you want to know the answers, don't you? That's the thing. I think it keeps you hanging on because you really just want that reassurance to know, how is this going to look? How am I going to feel? How am I going to react? How are other people going to react? And obviously, there is no way to know that other than just doing it.
It was kind of like a new start to my life, like a reborn type of thing.